Welcome to Unit 5, Kickoff and Mobilization. This is Lesson 1, Kickoff Meetings. We're going to view this lesson through the lens of a case study of a workplace incident that involved a floating excavator. An amphibious excavator is specialized heavy equipment designed to operate on open water with flotation pontoons. There are many makes and models of this type of equipment, and they're used routinely in industrial environments. In this incident, a contractor was hired to remove ice from an industrial pond. As the machine was working, and for various reasons that we'll come back to, the machine capsized, resulting in the death of a contract worker. As we move through the upcoming material, think about this incident, what factors may have contributed to it, and where in the contracting process actions could have been taken to ensure the operation was safe. Think also about your operations and how and when clients and contractors interact to get the best possible outcomes. To get started and to get our bearings, let's look at the contractor management framework and where the kickoff meeting sits in the bigger scheme of things. Kickoff is in the active phase of the contract, after alignment and before mobilization. The meeting is frequently guided by the contract documents and any alignment activities that have taken place after the contract has been signed or when putting a mobilization checklist into place. Let's get started. This lesson covers kickoff meeting description, project stakeholders and work teams, the goals of a kickoff meeting, when to hold and who to invite, and finally, best practices and key success factors. The kickoff meeting brings clients and contractors together to discuss a project's goals, scope, and methods of execution. When done well, kickoff meetings bring high value to a project or any set of contracted services. First, let's review the key players and participants. A project stakeholder can be any individual, group, or organization that can impact the project, performance, or its outcomes. Generally, these are the individuals and organizations who are actively involved in the project, ranging from the client who funds the work to the subcontractor who provides a specialty service critical to the project's success. Each stakeholder, by definition, has something to gain or lose with the project's outcome. Most work scopes have internal and external stakeholders. Here's an example of an internal stakeholder on a mature project that's in the midst of its decades-long life cycle. The project is a major industrial facility that is partly owned by an investment firm that has become concerned with worksite health and safety events. The activist shareholder pressures the other owners and facility managers to change leadership and make bigger investments to improve corporate culture. In this case, recent performance has caused a stakeholder to force change upon the project. An example of an external stakeholder. Farmland has been rezoned for industrial development, and a refinery has been approved for construction on those lands. The owners of the neighboring farms have concerns about access, construction noise, and potential health risks of the running facility. These stakeholders require early and ongoing engagement through the project's life cycle. Project teams are groups of individuals that contribute and deliver value to a project or other defined scope of work. Teams are multidisciplinary and may include outside resources or suppliers. Project teams are responsible for completing the work according to the schedule and specifications agreed to in the contract. On high-risk work sites, team members include representatives from both the client and the contractor. The standard job functions that are represented are executives like project and construction managers, line supervisors like superintendents, crew chiefs, and team leaders, and subject matter experts, sometimes referred to as line support functions, such as purchasing, quality, cost control, and health and safety personnel. And then finally, other specialty functions identified as key to the success of the work. Regarding specialty functions, the work may use unique equipment, materials, or work methods. Vendor reps and others with specialized knowledge are consulted in these cases to assist the project team. In other cases, regulatory representatives may be periodic team members participating in a kickoff meeting, and in rare cases, the work may be located in an area of cultural or ecological sensitivity. In such cases, these external stakeholders would contribute to the work team. A word here about scope, meaning what time and other resources does a given organization have to execute a kickoff for a specific work scope? Are all the formalities needed in every contracting situation? The answer is that it depends. It's acknowledged that in many small contracting scenarios, a single individual or a small number of key people wear multiple hats. Therefore, the interface between client and contractor at the beginning of a small job may be a person or two from each organization. A field manager, for example, may hold responsibilities for organizing the work, managing safety, quality, budget control, and a host of other duties. Of course, as work scope scales up, individuals or groups of specialists represent various functions throughout the project and hence participate in a kickoff meeting. No matter the size of the work team or the project, the fundamentals, if not all the process, still apply. Kickoff meeting goals are to set stakeholder and team roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Understand the assumptions, constraints, and deliverables that factor into the planning of the work. Sort out the work methods, especially the work sequencing and on-site planning, and establish workplace safety and quality standards. Discussion of the project goals create a common understanding of how the project will be managed, how progress will be measured, and how success will be achieved. Assumptions, constraints, and deliverables are factors that a project manages. They describe the essential elements of the project or scope of work, and they are the basis for all other decisions that come downstream. Misreading or misunderstanding of assumptions and constraints is a surprisingly common phenomenon in projects of all types. Assumptions are the facts about a project, things that are reasonably believed to be true or certain, and usually without the need of proof or demonstration. Examples of project assumptions are labor costs are not anticipated to escalate as contractors have guaranteed their rates for the project's duration, or materials costs will be limited to no more than 5% increase over the life of the project. Or finally, all equipment will arrive on site in workable condition. Constraints are elements that can restrict the delivery of the project. Constraints are considered during the project planning to eliminate or reduce their impact. Typical project constraints are time, scope, budget, resources, risk, and benefits. Other project-specific elements are important to assess. An example might be the primary road to the work site is due for repaving for 2 weeks in June of next year, which impacts the project's materials delivery schedule and its purchasing. In a practical sense, everyday variables like weather conditions are constraints, as anyone who's poured concrete in winter or handled sheet metal in windy conditions can attest. Deliverables are the products of project activities that are specific and measurable, the actual work that's been contracted. A couple of examples: installation of bulk commodities or manufactured items, things like concrete, structural steel, placement of equipment, etc. Or implementation of a business system necessary to support the project, something like time and attendance software, a health and safety program, or a quality surveillance program. A well-planned and led kickoff meeting will set the tone for the work. An outcome of mutual understanding of the project's goals establishes familiarity with and ultimately trust in project team members. And it's where the project culture gets started. So it's vital that the key players from client and contractor teams participate and move the ball forward. For projects that go off the rails for budget, schedule, quality, or safety, the root causes can often be traced to the planning stage and the project culture established at the beginning of the job. When to hold the kickoff meeting. On high-risk sites, the meeting is best held shortly before the contractor mobilizes to the site, generally no longer than 2 or 3 weeks. Many project specifics can alter the timeline, but recency bias is good in this case. Projects with multiple locations or phases typically require individual meetings to deal with each set of specifics. Internal and external kickoff meetings. Internal kickoff meetings are for the respective client and contractor teams to discuss their internal organizations and project plans. The intent is for team members to get to know each other, their game plan, and to prepare for the start of work. The external kickoff meeting brings client and contractor project teams together for the first time. The meeting ideally includes the key players of the client and contractor work teams. The external or joint kickoff meeting sets the vision, tone, and work culture foundations. It also covers the monetary, technical, and execution details of the work. Best practices for successful kickoff meetings. As with any project or contractor management activity, best practices have been identified over the years, including for kickoff meetings. These best practices will ensure you get the most value from the investment of time and your work team's attention. Plan the meeting. First impressions are lasting impressions, so project management best practice is to plan the meeting and follow an agenda that makes sense for the upcoming work. Prepare the agenda and send it to the attendees before the meeting so everyone can arrive prepared to make the session value added. Set an agenda appropriate for the scope and the attendees. Decide on the subject matter and tailor the agenda from there. For example, if the meeting is to kick off field work and mobilize the contractor, then it's best to concentrate on those specifics. Don't waste time on elements previously dealt with at a higher level or with different stakeholders. Here's a sample agenda. First, introduce the stakeholders and team members. Cover the project background, followed by an overview of the scope of the project. Schedule overview, including the key milestones, and the roles and the responsibilities of the project teams. Move on to risk management, including the health and safety standards, followed by discussion of the work methods, and finally, review and closeout. A detailed sample agenda suitable for high-risk workplaces is provided in the resource materials of this lesson. Who should lead the meeting? The best practice is for the project manager or most senior line manager to lead the meeting. On field mobilizations, this is frequently the construction manager or a similar role. Other roles can effectively lead the session, but visibility and leadership by the highest level line manager brings legitimacy to the process and subject matter. Build rapport. Start with introductions so that people can put names to faces and job titles. Reviewing respective client and contractor organization charts and reporting relationships is helpful. A high-level description of individual responsibilities is also valuable. Follow with background information that gives the teams an understanding of the importance of their efforts and contributions to the project. If there's a project charter, it's time to review its key elements. Keep the meeting focused. Some agenda sections can require detailed discussion. Before diving into the specifics of any one topic, review the project's scope, goals, milestones, assumptions, constraints, and critical deliverables first. Close the meeting. After covering the agenda items, allow time for Q&A at the end of the meeting. If action items arise from the discussion, review the actions, assign a person responsible for each, and include the details in the conference notes. Distribute the conference notes to the attendees and other stakeholders as needed. To wrap up, remember the key goals of the kickoff meeting and keep the bigger picture in mind. You're introducing the project teams, building rapport, and establishing a positive culture. Encourage collaboration through a shared understanding of project goals and processes. When project teams are aware of the goals and the means to achieve them, the likelihood of project success increases. Establish a firm understanding of the project's assumptions, constraints, and deliverables. Here's where the rubber meets the road. When the project teams understand the requirements for executing according to the project plan, you are building resiliency and the ability to absorb changes when they come. Let's revisit the floating excavator incident. The investigation report identified many contributing factors. Consider each of these and assess where a well-executed kickoff meeting may have made a difference. Previous modifications made the machine heavier than the pontoon design allowed for. The machine was operated in water too deep for the pontoon design. Investigation indicated that additional flotation capacity was required. The client was very unfamiliar with the safe operation of the contractor's equipment, lacking the internal knowledge or experience to know if it was operated within limits. The operator was equipped with a hydrostatic life jacket, similar to what you would wear paddling a canoe. This design of life jacket had the effect of pinning the operator to the bottom of the machine cab as it overturned. Best practice is a self-inflating life jacket, activated when the operator is clear of the machine in the case of capsize. And finally, the door of the operator's cab should be latched in the fully open position to allow quick operator egress when operating on water. Kickoff meetings are a contractor management best practice and a key success factor of well-run projects. Get the management commitment, plan the activity, and execute using best practices. Your processes and outcomes will improve by doing it. The organization will build capacity, adaptability, and resilience as a result. Next up, Lesson 2, Contractor Mobilization.